ladies and gentlemen. Well, first of all, I have to tell you I'm very impressed to have been invited to deliver a speech tonight. I have a feeling that at this stage of the evening, only a striptease could call the attention of the public, but not from me. Huh? Not from me. Okay, so anyway, without a striptease, I will try to do my best. And particularly the word in 2020 is a very challenging subject. I wish at this stage I want to mention a film that I like very much, which is The Meaning of Life by Monty Python, and where you know that after 2 hours of film, at the end of the film, you have a journalist who opens an envelope and says, so the meaning of life is. And I would like to be able to do that with the word in 2020. But I guess things are a little bit more complicated than that. And then so I will try to speak perhaps in 3 times. One is word in 2020 and the way we see it from the point of view of my country, France. Then I want to speak about France in 2020. And then I would have a big joker in the third part. So the word in 2020, well, it's extremely difficult to predict, but what we can know is that we are all extremely dependent on one another. There are a lot of threats, and a lot of threats are global, either because they are global per se, or because they are global because they come from neighbors, they come from different origins, they come from different horizons. So anyway, we are confronted with global challenges. I think Françoise mentioned it. Climate change, terrorism, which is to us, for France, a very challenging threat. Cross-border terrorism. We have migrations who can be both a benefit and also sometimes create problems. We have pandemias, we have poverty, and so on. So one of the questions, of course, my country brings, confronted to these challenges, is to cooperate and multilateralism. And I think paradoxically, though it may be, France considers that our sovereignty, our national sovereignty, relies in multilateralism. And there is sometimes a confusion between sovereignty and nationalism. And what we mean in my country by sovereignty means that you need to keep the autonomy for yourself, but you also have the necessity to cooperate and find solution willingly with the others. And this is the way we see our sovereignty within a multilateral world, which means not isolationism or nationalism. And then the answer is multi-format. I won't go into detail, but my country chaired the G7 this year, and we promoted a green fund in order to cope with climate challenges. We promoted the word partnership for education. We promoted also very strongly the equality between men and women. There are other, of course, forums. There are numerous. I want to mention the Council of Europe. France was chairing the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, and I'm happy to tell you that there was this idea of HOPE, which means History Observatory for Peace in Europe, that has been signed by 23 countries of the Council of Europe, including Serbia. And I had very challenging discussions with the Minister of Education here. But he went to Paris, he signed, and what's the idea? It's to promote discussion on how you teach history. So it's not harmonization of history, it's discussion on promoting European values in order to discuss how to teach history. And I think this is a big step forward. And of course, we have the United Nations. Françoise mentioned it. We've got the Francophonie, and we've got here the chair of the Francophonie in Belgrade, which is very active, the ambassador of Egypt. Last point about this multilateralism aspect I want to mention is that we are not just standing there waiting without doing anything if things if we think that progress can be made. And as far as the global threats and the UN system, you know that my country promoted the Paris Peace Forum, which is to imagine some new forms of multilateralism in addition to the one between countries, which is the more global one is the UN, but also to include civil society, the youth, NGOs, and we had the second edition this year. And the second point is that sometimes you've got to question things. And we are here in the Economist, so I want to mention that France is a very committed partner in NATO, but sometimes you need to ask some questions when the reality does not correspond to the scoreboard that is written. And you cannot just ignore that. I mean, diplomats like to ignore things that they can't explain, but sometimes you need to tackle the questions. And this is why my president in The Economist asked this question about NATO, and this is why the latest summit came with some mandate on the redefinition and the questioning of the strategy of NATO on sub-subjects are of what is terrorism, what should be the relation with Russia, what is Russia towards NATO member states, and I think we, France, have a quite open answer to this regard, and also what we think about European security. And these are questions that need to be tackled. The second part is, so this is how we see the instruments to tackle the world. The second point I want to mention is France in 2020. And of course, my country has some assets, but we are confronted in my country with several challenges. One of them is reforms and social issues. And you know that right now I'm quite happy to be in Belgrade because there are a lot of traffic jams, but many fewer than in Paris. And you know that France is stuck with the reform of retirements. And France is an interesting country because in a lot of countries, people demonstrate to change things. And today in France, people are demonstrating not to change things. But this is a challenge, and my government thinks that the system we have, which is a very beneficial system, a good system, very protective system, must remain so, but needs some adaptations. And this is what my government is tackling. It's not easy. So this is one of the challenge we are faced with, is reformed in France. We also have the challenge of terrorist attacks. I mean, I think that we did a lot in prevention. We did a lot in prevention through cooperation, including with this country, I have to say, which brought some very positive result in prevention of terrorism. But, I mean, this is an open question. The third one is also the political challenge we will have. I mean, it will not be as famous as the American presidential election, but we will have a political challenge in France in March with the local elections, and it's always a signal when you have this type of election for a government at midterm. So this is also going to be for my country a big challenge, although it has no impact on the parliament or the president, but still it is a signal and it is worth tackling. So how do my country considers itself now? I mean, we are a medium country with a medium influence, but we think that with some attributes of power, but we consider ourselves a power, in French I would say puissance d'équilibre, but I don't know how we would translate balancing power, balance power. So it means that we speak to everyone. It means that we cooperate with everyone. It means that, of course, we have allies. The US is one of our main allies, but our president opened, let's say, a door to speak with Russia and made a proposal for a new architecture of trust and security in Europe to discuss with Russia. So, of course, it may sound a bit provocative. Our Minister for Foreign Affairs went to Prague last week to try to explain that in the countries of Central Europe who have faced the difficulties of communism. But this is also this balance power, something that enables us also to do, like as was done yesterday, the Normandy format with Ukraine, Russia, and Germany to try to tackle the Ukrainian crisis. And we got the opening of new talks and the beginning of new talks. It means also, and I want to say this, being more present, reinvesting this region, and this is what my president came to say here in Belgrade in July. This means that this region, we have to be present. We want to have some political partnerships. Our Minister of Defense will come Friday in Belgrade and will visit Friday in Belgrade. And we will try to promote more cooperation in the economic field. What I'd like to end with is, of course, perhaps what I call my joker, but for the ones who could listen to me, perhaps you will notice that there is something I haven't mentioned, and this is perhaps something which is the most important for us, and this is the European Union. Because between the world and between France, the France and the world, there is the only, for us, relevant level, which is the level of the European Union. To France, it means a lot. It means a partnership, more than a partnership. It means giving up a lot of sovereignties in terms of trade, in terms of currency, in terms of agricultural policy, and it means working together with a group of countries for about already 60 years now to shuffle our whole life. And we believe in this. This is the reason why my president, because we believe in this, think that for us, for France, which is a medium-sized power now, European Union is the relevant level of influence in a globalized world. So this is the reason why he's very committed to reforming the European Union, to build a European sovereignty for Europe, EU to become more independent through a more effective competition policy, through a more effective defense, through a more balanced trade policy. Europe is not just open to the rest of the world. And the big challenges for 2020 will be certainly the budget. This is what will shuffle the future of the European Union for the next 7 years, because you know this is the discussion on the financial perspective. And on this, we hope we will have an extremely good cooperation, as usual, with Germany, who will chair the European Union in 2020, and creating a link with the French chairmanship of the European Union in 2022. And the last thing, I think that in this Europe, there is a room left, and this is what my president came to see here, and this room is the room left for this region, and for Serbia in particular. So I want to state it very clearly. For us, we see the future of these regions as full-fledged member of the European Union. We see Serbia as a full-fledged member of the European Union. Of course, there will be reforms. Reforms will be needed. I mean, it will not just come like that by sitting on a chair and waiting for a date. It's not a matter of date, it's a matter of reforms. It's a matter of challenging reforms in the field of, you won't be surprised, a lot of fields, but in particular rule of laws, business climate, and so on. And this, while this country and the countries of the region make these efforts, we are reforming the European Union, and there comes a time when this country and the countries of the region can be full-fledged member of the European Union. And since then, The other idea is, of course, to reshuffle a bit the enlargement process, the accession process, to make it more attractive and more beneficial to the countries of the region before the access to the European Union. So that's it. And this is what I wanted to say.
Good message for the end. Thank you.